It's time for The Verdict. The Verdict is a lively discussion of current events and legal issues pertinent to Oklahomans. The Verdict is hosted by Kent Myers and Mick Cornett. It's time for The Verdict.
Hello once again and welcome back to The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers. Kent is one of Oklahoma's top legal experts, and Kent, we are in the middle of a series of shows on education.
Yes, tonight we're going to have our second of 3 shows on education. Last week we talked about challenges and opportunities in public secondary education, and tonight we're going to be talking about the same thing, challenges and opportunities in independent education, and we have the headmasters of 2 of the most well-known and most well-established independent schools in the state, or the Southwest for that matter, with us to discuss that, and we're really looking forward to that discussion because the contrasts, I think, between what they'll have to say and what we heard last week are very interesting.
That's right. We will hear about independent schools and the challenges that they face. It's tonight on The Verdict. Welcome back to The Verdict. Mick Cornett, Kent Myers, and Kent's going to introduce our guests.
We're really pleased tonight to have 2 headmasters with us. On my right is Charlie Britton, the headmaster of Cassady School. Charlie did his undergraduate work at Lake Forest College and got his master's at Middlebury College in Vermont. He has been involved in independent school education for a number of years and has been, as I say, with Cassady for the last 3 years. Let me tell you just a little bit about Cassady, a few facts to pull up and take a look at. It was established in 1947. It has approximately 870 students and approximately 114 teachers. Charlie, we are really pleased you would join us 3 nights before Christmas, and may I say to you and all the faculty and staff at Cassady, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
We're glad to have you. On my left is Guy Bramble. Guy is the headmaster at Heritage Hall and has been for the last 16 years. He did his undergraduate work at Amherst College, got his master's at Harvard University. He's been involved in independent school education for about 35 years, Guy.
Long time.
Long time. Let's pull up a graphic about Heritage Hall. It was established in 1969, has 856 students and once again 114 teachers. So the 2 schools we have represented today are fairly comparable in size. Once again, Guy, let Mick and I wish the faculty, staff, and students of Heritage Hall happy holidays and Merry Christmas.
Thank you very much. We appreciate
We're
it.
really pleased that you could join us.
Thank you.
Guy, your school has grown quite a bit since 1969. Kind of run down the history of Heritage Hall.
Well, Heritage Hall, as I understand it, was a product of that very difficult period in the city's history when the busing movement came into play, and a number of parents who were concerned about the loss of involvement and control of their community schools began to look for other alternatives. Cassady was full to the brim in those days and couldn't accommodate everybody, and so a number of them got together and decided that they would form their own public school, a tuition-charging public school. I suspect that they had all a wide range of motives, but the people who were most intimately involved in the founding of this school, I think, were all about community control, and they made the point in the second year of operation when they very deliberately admitted students of color, and the school has moved ahead and never looked back, so that today we have nearly 20% of our student body are children of color.
And Charlie, Cassady has a long and distinguished history, starting in 1947.
Yes, it does. The Episcopal Bishop of Oklahoma, Thomas Cassady, wanted to start a school in Oklahoma City. And he went to some of the leading citizens and said, let's get this done. So in 1947, the Diocese of Oklahoma allowed Cassady to begin on a 40-acre parcel in the northwest part of the city. And it sits, the school today sits around a 5-acre lake. But when it was started, it was very, very modest. We had a barn, and that was the only building that the children had classes in. And today, of course, we have about 28 buildings around in a spectacular setting. But I really believe that people were tired of sending their children to Eastern boarding schools, and they wanted to create truly quality education, independent school education in Oklahoma City. So that, in a nutshell, is how Cassady began.
Let me address the Polo Bowl concept, which is the name given to the annual football game between Heritage Hall and Cassady. But there is, at least historically, been a perception that students at Heritage Hall and Cassady come from affluent, white, elitist backgrounds and act accordingly on the campus. Guy, let me start with you. What's your response to that sort of suggestion?
Well, I think it's a stereotype that has existed for decades. I mean, there was a time when it was true. In fact, the school that I attended in metropolitan Detroit was probably such a school. Today, I think you'd find at both Heritage Hall and Cassady a very conscious, deliberate, methodical desire and plan to create a very diverse community, and not just racially and socioeconomically, but in so many other ways. We want to mirror the society that we serve and the community that we serve. So we've worked really hard at that. In a budget of $8.5 million, commit nearly $1 million to financial aid to enable people to be at Heritage Hall irrespective of their resources, because we know that we have to make a commitment to the kind of diversity that we strive for.
Let me stay with you just for a minute with a little follow-up. You also, do you not have some sort of a program that involves community service by the students?
Yeah, absolutely. About 15 or 16 years ago, soon after I came to Heritage Hall, we began a service program. Many schools, and I think Charlie will tell you about this at Cassady, that have a religious foundation, have done service as a matter of course. Heritage Hall, as a non-religious school, has nevertheless focused on recognized the importance of spirituality, whether it's in a lay form or a more religious form. And we believe that service to our fellows is important, so that if you emphasize, as we do, leadership, you recognize that one of the responsibilities of leadership is to provide service for others.
Yeah. Charlie, tell us about how Cassady addresses some of these issues.
Well, I echo what Guy has said. If you drive by our campus, I think one of the things we face is our campus is enclosed with a fence, and most of our buildings are inward looking. So if there are people who have driven by our campus for 20 years who have never set foot at Cassady School. And what we tell people is that if they come through the gates, what they will find is a diverse community, a welcoming community, kids who are just outstanding. We have 18% population of students of color, and we give about $1 million of financial aid a year, and we welcome diversity. But if you come on our campus, what you'll find is just a really friendly, wonderful place, just like Heritage Hall. We have one of the leading service learning community service programs in the Southwest. It is absolutely phenomenal. We have a requirement that all our students do it in terms of outreach in the city, and we're really proud of that. But I do think that there is a general feeling that an independent school is a bastion for the rich, and it's just not true. Because what we really want, we want families to take the risk of coming on our campuses to see what we offer, and we want to give the greatest education possible to all sorts of people.
Let me jump in here and get us to a break. Charlie Britton, Guy Bramble, Kent Myers, and Mick Cornett. We'll be right back on The Verdict. Welcome back to The Verdict. We're discussing independent schools with Guy Bramble, Charlie Britton. Kent, where are we now?
I want to talk about faculty. Charlie, let me start with you. How do you attract and retain top faculty at Cassady, which I know you have, by the way?
Well, I think faculty are attracted to a school like Cassady, an independent school, first of all, because we have great students and we have families who are in partnership with the school. And also, you know, if you walk into an independent school classroom, your largest class may be 15 students. So with that kind of ratio, and with students who are bright and motivated and care about learning, where ideas are sacred, you know, how can you go wrong? And I also think that Cassady, we call Cassady a terminal workplace in a way because the people who have come have stayed. And I think that's a really wonderful thing. But we also compensate people fairly. And I know that, you know, the study just came out, the statistics on where Oklahoma falls with teachers' pay. And I'll say that, you know, we compensate our faculty above that mark, obviously, and we compensate them well. And I think that they really appreciate that. You know, I don't think you can find a better teaching environment than you'll find at a school like Cassady or Harris Home.
Guy, let's ask you about that same question. How do you retain the top teachers?
Well, I think much as Charlie has suggested, while there are occasionally teachers whose circumstances are driven by the dollar, the reality is that most teachers selected the profession despite the pay and have long since made their peace with that, so that when you're looking to attract and retain the very most capable faculty members, non-salary issues in many cases are going to be primary in their minds. They want an environment where they feel they can make a difference, where they've got motivated, capable kids, where they've got involved, supportive parents, where they've got good resources, where there is less time devoted to disciplinary issues and more to academic.
Yeah, you know,
Go ahead.
I wonder if I can add something. Sure. You know, I think one of the beauties about teaching an independent school, and both Guy and I teach, is that you can dictate your curriculum. You know, we have common goals as teachers to get students to the next grade level, but you can teach what you want to teach. You can teach to your passions. And to me, that's a beautiful thing. I mean, and for any teacher, that's music to their ears. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
One thing that was mentioned by Guy is discipline. We know that that in the news there's always reports of school violence, bullying, drugs in schools, drinking in schools. How do you approach such problems?
Well, first of all, you know, we don't tolerate it. We have wonderful students. They aren't angels. We realize that. We try to work educationally through programs that address drug and other alcohol issues, and we really don't have a bullying problem. You know, occasionally you will have children, just by the nature of the fact that they're kids, who will, you know, not always be kind to one another. But our faculty pounce on that. We are very stringent. We don't tolerate it. But I think the one thing that really separates independent schools is that there is no dumbing down in our institutions. Our children, from a very early age, learn to value ideas. Our faculty values ideas. And what we create is a safe environment, not just a physically safe environment, but a safe environment for ideas. But we don't tolerate that. And you know, we have a very strong disciplinary system, and we hope we're thoughtful about it. Yeah.
Guy, what do you think about that?
Well, picking up on what Charlie said, I mean, there are a lot of similarities in our schools. I think it's important to make clear one issue. Independent schools tend to be contractually driven rather than constitutionally driven, and as a result, you know, we have different missions than our public schools do, and I like not to get too caught up in what often are very unfair and invidious comparisons to public schools. They have a much broader mission than we do. They have to serve the entire population, as opposed to being more selective about what we want to do and with whom we do it. The result is that we tend to attract families whose parents and children tend to be more committed to academics, tend to be more responsive to the disciplinary expectations of their teachers, and ultimately, though I think education is how we most effectively work with disciplinary issues, kids who cannot or will not respond to those educational initiatives ultimately will find themselves on the outside looking in.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you, when you say contractually driven, you mean the contract between the school and the family?
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
That's what's expected, and that's what people live up to.
These are the expectations, and this is what we expect from a family. Yeah.
we can ask a family or a student to leave. And we do that reluctantly and infrequently, but it happens periodically.
Yes.
What do you see happening 10 years from now at Heritage Hall? Where do you see your school?
Well, 10 years, we've just, we're a generation younger than Cassady, and we've just begun to move into what I see as the adulthood of our institution, a young adulthood. It's an exciting time. We're beginning to flesh out the infrastructure of our campus. We've got alumni now who are hitting 50. I think that in the next 10 or 15 years, as we approach our 50th year of operation, one can reasonably expect a campus that is well fleshed out, much as Cassady's is already. I think that you can expect some ongoing changes in curriculum and academic program in response to what kids need in order to be prepared for the world that they're going to move into. So I'm looking at an exciting time. I expect that the next 10 years is going to see Oklahoma City become more and more aware of the opportunities that are available in independent schools, and I hope that increasingly that our schools will be viewed as real assets and resources for the city more generally.
Charlie, just briefly in a few seconds, where do you see Cassady in 10 years from now?
I would like to attract families to Cassady who may not have considered independent school education in the past. I would like us to be a more diverse school. I would like us to be able to offer more financial aid for deserving families. And I would like us to keep graduating wonderful students and great kids.
Hey, we appreciate both of you coming on The Verdict.
Well, thank you.
Guys.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Charlie
so
Britton with
much.
Cassady, Guy Bramble with Heritage Hall. Kent and I'll be back with the final word after this. No such thing as algebra. I love that graphic.
That's right. I never found it.
Mick Cornett and Kent Myers here to wrap up another show on The Verdict. This was our second of 3 shows dealing with education.
And next Wednesday night, we're going to have Bob and Peggy McCormick coming on talking about early childhood education. And in contrast to some of the things we talk about, Oklahoma really has a positive, good story to tell about that. So we're looking forward to finishing out our series with a show on early childhood education. We thank Guy and Charlie for coming on and talking about independent education. It's something that is also growing in Oklahoma as well as elsewhere. But Mick, this is our show right before Christmas, and my family wishes you and your family happy holiday.
Thank
Merry
you very
Christmas.
much.
And the same to all our viewers. We hope your holidays are just wonderful.
Notice your Christmas tie.
Yes, Christmas trees.
Yeah,
And you've got
very
Santa and
tiny
reindeer.
snowmen and Santa. If you'd really need a microscope in front of your television set, though, or HD TV, I think, to be able to see this very clearly. Hey, don't forget to check out our website, theverdict.tv. Tell us about a guest you'd like to see on a future edition of The Verdict. For Kent, I'm Mick. We'll see you next time on The Verdict.